Mr. Mayor, would it be possible for you to indulge me for 2 minutes, please? Because I'd like to pay tribute to our Mayor, as I think it's only fair. I think it's only fitting, whilst councillors in the chambers are all sitting. With passion I do hope I impart this poem I know is dear to Amar's heart. It waved above our infant might, when all ahead seemed dark as night. It witnessed many a deed and vow, we must not change its colour now. With heads uncovered, swear we all, to bear it onward till we fall. Come dungeons dark or gallows grim, this song shall be our parting hymn. Then raise the scarlet standard high, with its shade we'll live and die. Though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here.
Thanks, Councillor, for that poem. Maybe to some it would be thought-provoking. Any apologies, please? Any declaration of interest, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. On item 24B, the Asterdale Children's Centre, my daughter is a pupil there, and also on the same item 24B, I'm a non-executive director of Derby NHS City PCT.
Okay. Item 10, to approve the minutes of the meeting of the council.
Mr. Mayor, sorry. Declaration of interest, item 207/09. I'm a director of Umbrella.
Okay. Any more? Item 10, to approve the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on 1st March 2010 and the extraordinary meeting of the Council on the 17th March 2010. Move. All in favour? Thank you. Item 11, to receive any announcement from the Mayor. I have got some announcements. First of all, it's my sad duty to announce the death of former Councillor Deirdre Mitchell and former Councillor Clive Holmes. So if I could request the members to stand for a minute's silence, please. Be seated, please. Anybody wish to speak on Councillor Carr?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It falls to me to provide this tribute to the late Councillor Mitchell for reasons which will become clear later. Deirdre was born in Ballymena, Northern Ireland, one of four, two sisters and a brother. She was always academically very gifted and excelled at school, and she always wanted to be a doctor. After qualifying as a doctor, she started work in Belfast but moved to England in the 1970s, where she worked in Sheffield for 4 years and then moved, as we know, to the DRI, where she remained for 25 years. During this time, she quickly rose to become one of its youngest consultants. Later on, she became a medical director. Her specialism was haematology, again of which more later. Deirdre was a proactive sort of person. If action needed to be taken or a campaign organising, she would be there. She was very well read and had a wide range of interests, including the Cairns Trust, which educates children and adults in rural Nepal, and was personally sponsoring a Nepalese student through medical school. Other charities she supported were WaterAid, bringing clean water to the world's poorest people, something I guess we'd all support, and the Haemophiliac Society. Her sons remember helping her with fundraising. She was a keen walker, like myself, and a rambler. She is still survived by her parents, brother and sisters, 2 sons and 3 grandchildren. Mine and Deirdre's paths first crossed in mid-1980s when we were both parent governors at Littleover School. But apart from meeting occasionally in Littleover on the street, we did not meet again until 1989, when we met when my daughter returned to the UK after a spell abroad and was seriously ill. She was admitted to Ward 10 at the DRI, where, as one of the consultants, Deirdre had the unpleasant task of telling Scylla and I that Charlotte was diagnosed with adult myeloid leukemia. Now, as some of us know, leukemia isn't treated by an oncologist as other cancers, but by a haematologist. In this case, the team on Ward 10, headed by consultants Mitchell, Main and McKiernan, which we always refer to as the 3 M's, and I have a feeling that Councillor Winter will probably know Stuart Main, who was a really, really nice man. They treated my daughter to such good effect that she recovered. I am sure that there are many other people in and around Derby who have similar reasons to be as grateful to Dr. Mitchell as I am. I was therefore very pleased when she was first selected for Abbey to restore our relationship, and it is with great sorrow that I received the news of her death. This is my personal tribute to a fine clinician and a wonderful person. Thank you.
Councillor Hickson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my job this evening to just pay a tribute to former councillor Clive Stewart Hulls. Clive Hulls, and I suspect there aren't many left in the chamber now who were members when Clive was a member. I think it's probably only me, Robin Wood and Sarah Bolton. Was elected to Mickleover Ward in 1976 and was the councillor for Mickleover for 3 years. And he was deputy leader of this council from 1977 to 1979. And he then became a member in Darley Ward, and we served side by side in Darley Ward from 1987 until 1996. Clive was an interesting character, very affable, very well liked across the political divide. He was a journalist, and at the time I first met him was working for the Trader newspaper, when the Trader was quite a force to be reckoned with in Derby. It all seems a long time ago now, but that was the situation. He surprised us all by marrying very late in life, when everybody thought that he was going to be a confirmed bachelor. And his wife Anne was a naval commander at, was a naval commander at Dartmouth Naval College. She's now retired. There are lots of stories that I could tell you about Clive, but we had a nickname for him. When the Assembly Rooms was first built in Derby, it was called the Civic Halls as a working title. And Clive was very exercised about this, wasn't he, Sarah? And we used to call him Civic Halls as a nickname. But Clive was the most affable and generous person. As I say, well-liked, with a pleasant and easy personality. Everybody liked him. He died peacefully in Dartmouth a few weeks ago. He's a sad loss, and it's good that we should remember him this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. The next announcement from me is just welcoming the new councillors, Councillor Atwell, Councillor Barker, Councillor Redford, Councillor Whitby, and Councillor Winter. Welcome to all from the future. And it's also my pleasure to welcome the return of two councillors who have been councillors before, Councillor Ashburn and Councillor Shiraz Khan. The final announcement from the Mayor is that I understand this is going to the last council meeting of Michael Foot. When he is all known to us as Michael, we all call him Michael. I personally wish him very well in the future, and I can say that to replace officers like Michael is, if not impossible, very difficult task. Could I call upon the leader of the council, Councillor Jones, to say a few words about Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's with great pleasure and a little sadness that this is Michael's last meeting. It's been great. It's a great pleasure working with Michael. He's the person to go to for advice. He's the person to go to if you've got a legal problem. He's the person to go to if you have an issue with anything to do with elections. That's just to name a few. And there have been many, many occasions in the last 2 years as leader that I have sat on committees and boards with Michael where we've debated points, and he's always been really helpful, a great gentleman, and I wish him a long and happy retirement. He's not going just yet, so I'm glad you're around for a few more weeks, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say a few words on behalf of my group. Michael came to the authority 22 years ago, I think it was, when Derby was still a town and still a growing market town. And having spent so long in one organisation, I can actually understand the process that Michael must have gone through. Having been through 25 years in the army myself and seen so many restructures and reorganisations and changes of direction, changes of leadership, the challenges that you've gone through are quite incredible. And you've always met them. I mean, I've only known you for 3 years now, but you've always presented yourself as Mr. Unflappable. You always have a little wry smile on your face when things start to go wrong. But you've never actually, I've never seen you lose your temper. I've never seen, although I do know that some of my members may have lost their temper with you on occasion. Mr. Hickson. But I do know that my group do very much appreciate and value the advice and guidance, more particularly, that you've given them in the past. We thank you very much for that, and we hope that you have a very happy, bountiful and enjoying retirement.
Councillor Bayliss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm told that one of the many facets that Mr. Foot had, he was previously a teacher and lecturer, though it just reminds me of those who can do and those who can't teach. I'm pleased to say he's one of those people who do, and he's our gain in terms of the local government's gain. He's the ultimate professional officer, as it said before. His advice has been actively sought across this chamber. He's probably one of the best politicians I've ever come across, because he can join up all the political groups where sometimes those who are elected to be politicians have failed. And I think he's very good at herding councillors, and I think maybe he's got a talent later when he's retired. Maybe he can try herding cats. I would like to say from this group, and I'm sure across the chamber, thank you, Michael. Thank you for your time and expertise. Thank you for your good humour, your ability to listen to and put members right, particularly when they're wrong and they're shouting at you. And we do apologise for shouting at you. We wouldn't mean it in any malicious way. And I think at this stage I'd like to invite the entire council to rise and give Mr. Foot a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I could go on about my experiences in council meetings, but it would just be a matter of self-indulgence. And I'm sure you would wish to get on with the business.
Okay, item 12, to receive any statements from members of the Council Cabinet. There are no statements. Next item is to receive any questions from the public to the members of the Council Cabinet, chairs of commissions or chairs of committees, and the answers to those questions. The first question is from Mr. Dunn, and this is to Councillor Nater.
Good evening, Councillor Nater. Mr. Mayor. Derby City Council has been championing the building of a new super swimming pool within the city, which is to be applauded. However, as part of this project, we are told that both the Queen's Leisure Centre and Moorways complexes will be closed. Taking into account that in the last 3 months, the Queen's Leisure Centre has been shut to the public at least 4 times due to swimming galas taking place over a weekend, how does Derby City Council propose to manage that ongoing situation with even less water space available than we have at present? Or is it yet another case of corporate galas will come as first priority, with the public wishes being yet again totally ignored?
Councillor Nater.
Good evening, Mr. Dunn. Thank you very much for your question. We have on occasions discussed this out of the Council, but never to say thanks for your question. The Council's new leisure strategy will increase the level of water and space in Derby. The new swimming facilities will also offer greater flexibility through the use of movable floors and booms. We will be able to use the new pools so that we are able to accommodate public swimming and competitive swimming at the same time. The Council continually looks at providing a balanced programme to its swimming pools to ensure we are able to cater for all levels of ability and need. The promotion and development of competitive and club swimming are important programmes and events that form part of the Balance programme. However, when these events take place, we will always ensure Moorways and Queen's Leisure Centres will work together to ensure that other people are able to swim at an alternative pool where the gala is taking place.
Any supplementary, Mr. Dunn?
Yeah, I do, Councillor Nater. Yeah, so you're telling me then they're going to build more than one pool on this site?
No, I think, well, if you have had a look at the leisure strategy, Mr. Dunn, there's proposed facilities east, west, north and south. So what we're going to be doing is having one hub within the city and then having a look at satellites. So that will increase the space of our water space and increase participation in swimming as well.
Thank you.
Next question is again from Mr. Dunn, and this is to Councillor Redfern.
Good evening, Councillor Redfern. It's regarding the bus station. Could somebody from the licensing committee please explain the logic of granting a licence to sell alcohol between 6 o'clock in the morning, 2300 hours, or 23:30 p.m. at a convenience shop to be sited in a bus station, despite the original licence plans being discounted as inappropriate by a judge? The whole area is supposed to be an alcohol-free zone. Very strong objection from at least every bus driver I've spoken to. The possibility of people buying liquor to drink on the last bus. And can you also explain how you intend to stop people buying drinks and consuming on the way home, and how you intend to police the area to stop consumption of alcohol when within the bus station and on the last buses, please?
Councillor Redfern.
I'm behind you, Mr. Dunn. Firstly, I will respond to you with the official reply. The licensing process is set out in legislation and is very prescriptive. An application for a new premises licence was received on the 11th of February 2010. The application was advertised and the closing date for representations to be made was the 12th of March 2010. As no representations were received, the licence was issued in accordance with the licensing legislation. The designation of an alcohol restricted zone does not prevent a licence to sell alcohol from being granted. Both the bus station management and the bus companies will have rules in place regarding the consumption of alcohol, and it will be for them to decide how they wish to apply this within the bus station and on the buses. I guess, Mr. Dunn, your frustration mirrors some of that we experience as members of the licensing committee. We can't be the judge, the jury, the prosecution and the defence. We have to remain impartial. And on occasions that's tested to the very limits. Because we don't have a response from the responsible authorities, and for example that is the police, the fire, trading standards, noise pollution, we find it very difficult to turn down a licence and application. However, there is an opportunity for members of the public and councillors as interested parties to involve themselves, to object and to be heard and to put their case to the committee. Because this is not very well practiced, Mr. Dunn, I have made it my responsibility, along with the chairs, Councillor Berry, Councillor Lehman, Councillor Baxter was here, and Councillor Rawson, to do a better job than that. We don't feel that the public know what they can do, and it's not enough. I have taken it on board, with the support of my vice chairs, to write to every chair of every neighbourhood in this city and invite ourselves along to outline what we can do and what members of the public and councillors can do, to encourage them to make this representation on behalf of themselves and the neighbourhood from where they live. This is the point of handing the licensing responsibility to local authority. Magistrates you cannot approach. Councillors you can. Thank you.
Any supplementary, Mr. Dunn?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I take your sentiments on board. But would you agree, would it not have been better to have had the notice put somewhere, not hidden behind the barriers while the bus station was being built? Should it not have been displayed in a place where people would have seen it?
Mr. Dunn, I would like to see the notices go out as far as possible, and in some respects that's exactly what we do. And to that end, recently we have had every application go out to every councillor in the council. 51 councillors have that information now. It's also on CMIS. I'm more than happy, or when I was chair, more than happy for that information to be shared. It's not a secret. It shouldn't be a secret. The public should know how to access it and the public should use it. More than happy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next question is from Anthony Withers to Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Jones, good evening. Would you please advise me of the current state of the Council's finances, especially with regard to the present level of the reserves? I should also like to know what is the Council's policy and rules for the utilisation of these reserves, particularly with respect to which committees or full Council will be allowed to spend the reserves and under which circumstances.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Withers. The Council has a balanced budget for 2010-11, which was approved by full Council on 1st of March 2010. The level of reserves for 2010-11, as at 31st of March 2010, is 29.5 million. This includes a general reserve of approximately 6.7 million, equivalent to 2% of the Council's budget requirement, which is maintained as a contingency against risks and uncertainties within the budget. In addition to the general reserve, the Council also had 21.3 million in earmarked reserves held for specifically defined purposes which will be spent over the next few years. The Council also has 1.5 million held as a corporate contingency reserve which has not yet been committed to any service areas. Under the Council's financial procedure rules, specific use for the reserves or any change of use of those reserves is subject to Council Cabinet approval unless this has already been approved as part of the budget or if its delegated authority has been granted to a named officer.
Any supplementary, Mr.
Yes,
Wood?
please. Could you please explain to me how this present situation compares to the situation 2 years ago when the Liberal Democrats wrested council control from the Labour Party? Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Over the last 2 years, we have added to the reserves specifically for special projects. So they have, in fact, grown. They are in good condition. We have set balanced budgets over the last 2 years, and we're leaving the council in a good situation at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next question is from Simon Bacon to Councillor Jones. Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. Sorry. Next question is from Thelma Bradshaw to Councillor Carr.
Thank you. It has been proven that drivers who have achieved the standard of the advanced driving test are 75% less likely to have a road collision. Many companies have insisted that all their drivers achieve this standard. They have reaped many benefits. Fewer collisions mean fewer man-hours lost through injury, fewer vehicles damaged, fewer claims against their drivers, savings on fuel, less wear and tear on engines, etc., from more skilled drivers. Several councillors here and the Mayor's chauffeurs are advanced motorists. Would it not be good strategy, good economics and good publicity if the council encouraged or insisted that all its drivers, and its councillors too, should take additional training to this standard?
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mrs. Bradshaw. I'd like to start by thanking you for this helpful suggestion. I think that helping the many people who drive council vehicles to do so more safely and more economically is very important, and we have already done a lot of work on this issue. All new drivers working for the council are assessed as to their ability to drive the category of vehicles they are expected to operate. Included in this is an element of driver awareness training and eco-driving. Minibus and refuse collection drivers are particularly targeted for eco-driving techniques. We teach advanced driving techniques to our high-profile drivers with our defensive driving and fuel efficiency course, which is our own equivalent of advanced driver training. In the last financial year, we concentrated on getting street cleansing and Derby Homes caretakers through this course. We also use a variation of the course for any of our drivers who give us any concerns about their driving. For example, those who have had any accidents or complaints about their driving standards. We ordinarily train 3 drivers a day on our advanced driving course. The course is offered to any department that wishes to take advantage of it, and I can let you have a copy of the curriculum. There is plenty of one-to-one time with our trainers. The cost of this training equivalents approximately £200 per day, and we have 1,000+ drivers on the council's database. The course is not mandatory, but we do say to managers that it would be financially and environmentally beneficial for them to provide this for their staff. Thank you, Mayor.
Any supplementary?
Not a supplementary question, but thank you very much. That's nice to know, and I hope you continue.
Okay, next question is from Simon Bacon to Councillor Jones.
Councillor Jones, the March the 1st full council meeting highlighted the removal from the capital programme of the new City Park in Blaegreaves Ward, which has been proposed for over a decade, but has consistently failed to become reality. Residents of the Oaklands Avenue estate have asked for many years for access to the current City Park land, which is within the council's grasp by a purchase of the required land and access drive which is for sale. Considering this land is now promoted as potential building land in the core strategy, what assurances can the council give that the previously allocated land is protected from the housing development, and when will the council take action to make the new City Park a reality?
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Bacon. The adopted City of Derby local plan identifies land for a proposed City Park east of Moorway Lane under Policy L4. This land is also protected in the local plan as Green Wedge. The Council is currently preparing its local development framework, core strategy, which will eventually replace parts of the local plan. As part of this process earlier this year, we published for consultation our core strategy options, including some options for possible new housing sites. These were based on sites being promoted by landowners and developers, one of which included the land identified for the City Park in the local plan. Studies are currently underway to evaluate these housing site options, which will feed into the next stage of the core strategy later this year. This preferred options stage will identify which, if any, of the potential housing sites should be taken forward for further consultation. There has therefore been no decision to remove the allocation for a City Park at Blaegreaves, and the local plan allocation for the park remains in force. The Council has approached the owners of Price Farm on several occasions during the last 5 years with a view to purchasing the land, but on each occasion there have been difficulties in agreeing a price. Council officers are still negotiating with the estate agents representing the owners of Price Farm to see if an acceptable price can be agreed, and are also considering other options, including the use of compulsory purchase powers. The development of the park is still therefore being progressed despite the land purchase issues, and I and the Blaegreaves councillors will continue to work with officers to bring this scheme forward.
Supplementary, Mr. Bacon?
There's been no change in the new City Park for a number of years now. So what assurances can you give me tonight that the site will become a greater priority than it currently is?
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. It's only in the last couple of weeks that I, along with the councillors for both Littleover and Blaegreaves Ward, met with senior officers in this council to look at what we could do to try and bring forward parts of that park scheme, particularly the access part. It is being looked at, it is being negotiated, and as I said before, we will do everything we possibly can to bring that to fruition.
Thank you.
Next question, again from Simon Bacon. This is to Councillor Carr.
Good evening, Councillor Carr. The RRS waste contract started on April the 1st, 2010, April Fool's Day, and currently ongoing highlights the Council will benefit financially from burning third-party waste at the proposed Synfin waste plant. Will the Council also benefit financially or by other means for the generation of renewable obligation certificates, ROCs, from the burning of biodegradable waste at the proposed facility?
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Simon. First, there is no intent in the contract to burn third-party waste whatsoever, but the Council will benefit financially from the generation of ROCs, and this has been an integral part of the business case for this facility. Thank you.
Supplementary, Mr. Baker?
Well, firstly, just to correct you, correct you, Councillor Carr, it clearly states in the contract that they can accept third-party waste to burn. If you've not read the contract, then I really can't help you on that. My supplementary question is, why did Councillor Carr at last night's Osmaston Forum state that biodegradable waste will not be burnt in the Sinfin waste incineration plant, which it clearly will be?
Councillor Carr.
Yes, you're quite right, Simon. I made a mistake last night. There will be some biodegradable waste. However, I still maintain the contract will only burn waste from within the City of Derby and Derbyshire County. It will not burn third-party waste.
I'll send you a copy of the contract.
Thank you. Next question is from Dorothy, and this is to Councillor Carr. Dorothy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Incineration is not recycling. Following on from Councillor Carr's statement that a review of the Derby incinerator and the contract was to take place at Cabinet last month, when would the new administration be releasing this? Oh, sorry, Councillor. When will the new administration be releasing this information, if that's at all possible at this time to ask?
Councillor Carr.
I can't comment on behalf of the new administration. What I can say is that the RRS solution, including the proposed waste treatment facility at Sinfin Lane, will deal with waste in Derby and Derbyshire sustainably and in accordance with the waste hierarchy, encouraging minimisation, increasing reusable and materials recovered for recycling before generating energy from the remaining waste, and so diverting waste from landfill. It will support both ours and the County Council's own waste minimisation and recycling activities, and will help the councils exceed their joint recycling target of 55% by 2020. We are currently looking at all aspects of the contract, and the new administration will be making a decision in their own timescales. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. That's not what the outline business case states. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jobs have been lost at the Household Waste Recycling Centre, and recycling rates have dropped since the incinerator developer took over. We've seen job losses in various public sectors, including services for the older members of the community, social services and others. And I'm just getting to it, Mr. Mayor.
Please come to the supplementary.
Can the Council, here it is, can the Council, or is it the Chief Executive's Department, tell us how many jobs could have been saved through spending the £500,000 recently saved through more recycling and less waste being produced, instead of putting up street pride banners, how much those street pride banners actually cost, and it looks like a duplication exercise as well, and it's a distraction to drivers, and how many people have used it, and which...
Can you come to the supplementary? You're just going on to make
those are...
Please, can you come to the supplementary?
That was all in there, Councillor. And which council committee okayed it?
Is that it?
Yes.
Councillor Carr, can you respond to that, please?
Only some of it, Mr. Mayor. I guess when we look at the actual recording, I might be able to provide some more answers.
Thank you.
I can tell you that Street Pride was approved by Cabinet at an earlier meeting.
Next question is from Colin.
Thank you.
Colin Underhill to Councillor Jones. Mr. Underhill.
Evening, Mr. Mayor. In view of the fact that Derby City Council refused its own planning application, and quite rightly so, for a hard path through Darley Park, and now promotes a draft Darley Abbey regeneration strategy, why has it not given one moment of thought to the Riverside Gardens to Handyside Bridge public walkway? This connection to the Derwent Valley Mills Heritage Trail is in a disgusting state of repair and totally lacking in safety measures. For example, there is no balustrade along the section of narrow walkway under the St Altman's Bridge. We are trying to promote Derby to the tourists, and must not forget that the first impression is the lasting impression.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Underhill. Derby City Council has developed a project to improve the river corridor from Darley Park to Bass's Recreation Ground. This forms part of the plans to enhance the World Heritage Site and city centre public realm. The Derby City Greenway project includes in its remit the section of path from the Riverside Gardens to Handyside Bridge that has been raised as an issue in this question. The overall scheme seeks to improve the link from the city centre to Darley Abbey and the Derwent Mills World Heritage Site. This will include improved access to the existing path at key points, general improvements to the path, landscaping, signage and biodiversity improvements. It will also include a resubmission of the planning application to construct the path through Darley Park, as this is seen as a vital missing link in this route. The proposal to install a fence or balustrade along the narrow walkway under the Causey Bridge, St Altman's Way, as mentioned in the question, will also be considered as part of the overall project. This will, however, require the final approval of the City Council's structural engineers, as well as the Environment Agency, to ensure that it does not affect access for maintenance or impact on the river when it is in flood. The completed scheme will enhance the southern gateway to the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site for both residents and visitors to Derby. Thank you.
Any supplementary, Mr. Underhill?
Could I just ask if there's a timescale on the actual pathway being worked on?
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I'm sure there is a timescale and we will send that out to you.
Thank you.
Next question again from Mr. Underhill. This time is to Councillor Carr. Mr. Underhill.
Councillor Carr. Does the City Council have a policy of not employing women on all levels of the street cleaning operation, from operatives to management? Most men appear to need an expensive street cleaning machine, toys for the boys, without a sparkling effect. The fact that women have the indisputable skill of being able to multitask will surely give the new Street Pride operation the feminine touch.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Underhill. Well, I'm not going to get into the multitasking argument. I've got a smack round the ear from that before. The Council's recruitment policies and procedures are well documented and they do not discriminate in favour of either gender. Multitasking is certainly part of the Street Pride agenda and it's hoped that at some time in the future all our staff, irrespective of gender, will be able to perform the full range of tasks expected of them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any supplementary, Mr. Underhill? Thank you. Next question is from Penny D. Abreu to Councillor Jones.
To who? Sorry, I didn't hear.
The question is to Councillor Jones.
Good evening, Councillor Jones. Why has the DCC failed to get the worn, uneven surface of St Mary's footbridge, the poor drainage at the two access points and the unsightly anchor points of the stainless steel bobbins sorted before the maintenance contract ran out? After many delays, the footbridge was hastily completed in 2008 for the ministerial visit.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Dabrew. Since the City Council became aware of the bonded gravel surface to the footbridge that it had begun to strip away from the deck plates in isolated areas, the City Council has been in discussions with the supplier about rectifying this problem. It has taken a long time to get the required work scheduled, partly due to the weather over last year. We do now have assurances from one of the directors of the supplier that the work required will be carried out during June 2010. Since the problem was highlighted during the maintenance inspection for the bridge, the surface has been inspected on a regular basis, and at no point was it considered to be too hazardous to walk across. The drainage problems at the ends of the footbridge are related to the cleaning and maintenance schedule for the bridge, rather than defective works by the contractor. The City Council's Bridges team will be working closely with the new Street Pride service to ensure that the required maintenance regime is followed in the future. The bobbins and their anchorages are as they were designed, fabricated and installed by the public artists commissioned to produce them. We are not aware of any previous comments relating to the fixings being unsightly, but the matter will be discussed with the public artists concerned. The fact that the maintenance period has expired does not relieve the contractor of his liabilities to rectify these problems, which arose during that period. It is unfortunate these issues have affected the perception of this award-winning scheme.
Supplementary, Mr. Pearl?
Thank you. Yes. Has there been a cost to the council for the repairs, or will there be a cost?
I would anticipate that if it's the contractor's fault, then he will bear the cost, but a definitive answer to that effect can be sent out to you.
Next question, again from Penny Debrew to Councillor Jones.
Could DCC please explain why several young standard trees were removed only 8 months after being planted on the corner of Queen Street and St Auckland's Way?
Can I just interrupt you for a minute? I got to ask the councillors because the time of 30 minutes is run out. Would you still like to continue so that... Yeah, agreed? Yeah, sorry for the interruption. Carry on.
Shall I start again? Could DCC please explain why several young standard trees were removed only 8 months after being planted on the corner of Queen Street and St Auckland's Way, opposite Jury's Hotel, and where did the trees go? The area is now visually devoid, having left a large expanse of grey patchwork tarmac. Is this now the completed street scene?
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. The trees were to be part of the landscaping scheme implemented by the Jury's Inn developer, required by condition of the Planning Permission. However, the trees were planted before the details of the landscaping scheme had been agreed and were not planted in an appropriate medium to ensure their long-term survival. Also, the trees were of poor quality. The developers were not willing to implement an appropriate planting design due to the high costs involved, which requires an engineering solution to provide appropriate growing conditions within the old subway, but also has to support pedestrian traffic. A contribution secured under the Section 106 Agreement for Public Open Space did not allow for the required engineering solution due to the cost, and as such a temporary solution agreed on was to remove the trees due to their poor quality and inadequate design. The Council will programme works to landscape the space at a later date, funding permitting, as a public realm project, including tree planting that will provide a long-term amenity and canopy over this location.
Supplementary?
Not as such. I'm just thankful to hear that something positive will come out of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 14, to receive any written questions about the business or functions of the Derbyshire Police Authority, Derbyshire Fire Authority or Derby Homes Limited, and the answers to those questions. No questions have been received. Item 15, to receive any written questions from non-council cabinet members to members of the council cabinet and answers to those questions. We got one question from Councillor Bolton to Councillor Nater. Councillor Bolton, please.
Thank you. Councillor Nater, good evening. Can you please update me on the latest developments with our new Chaddesden Library? Thank you.
Councillor Nater, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bolton. We have been advised by Council's Property Services and offices that current library building can be expected to last until 2015. It can take up to 30 months to plan and build a new library. We therefore have some time left until end of 2011 before a final decision has to be taken. To date, we have been unable to identify a site that meets all the criteria for the location of a successful public library. So rather than opt now for a site which fails short of what is required, we are continuing to explore options. The funding remains available to implement the project as soon as agreement is reached on site.
Supplementary, Councillor Bolton, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I seem to feel that's the same answer that you gave me quite a few months ago, Councillor Nater. But obviously I do understand that the next item on the agenda is to change cabinet members, so we will have a new cabinet member in your portfolio, and I hope he won't dither. I know you were accused of dithering over this subject and dilly-dallying, but let's hope the next cabinet member will not dilly-dally or dither, because this issue needs addressing and quickly. I was successfully re-elected to this council to serve the members of Chaddesden Ward on May the 6th. I've had 3 surgeries since that date, and at every surgery I've had questions about this issue. So I need answers, and answers quickly, because the library won't last till, you said, 2015. And I've done my homework today, and the view is that the money that's been ring-fenced in the capital programme, if it's not spent quickly, there won't be the money.
Can I ask for the supplementary? Please.
Yes, I'm just coming round to it, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, well, you have taken nearly a couple of minutes.
If you bear with me, please.
Can you please come to the supplementary?
I'll just have to repeat that bit now, because you were talking.
Please, Councillor Bolton, supplementary.
I have been told today, after doing my homework, that the money that is ring-fenced, if it's kept in the council's reserves much longer, will not pay for a new library. So the people in Chaddesden won't have a new library if there's any more delays. Because if this delay goes further than 2011 or 2012,
Bolton,
we will not have a new library.
You are not asking the supplementary. Can you please ask the supplementary question? You are going to make a
Yes,
statement.
thank you very much.
Please do that.
Thank you. Is it true?
Councillor Nater.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm glad I'm not dithering as much as you are, but we've been around this. We've been around this. We've been around this many a times before, Councillor Bolton. We've spoke about it personally. We've spoke about it with your ward councillors. Right, we're trying to find the best location for this library, and that's what we're doing. And we, I think, some time ago said 6 months we'd set the deadline for this, and you know, we'll be sticking to the deadline. And you're right. I hope the incoming cabinet member also, you know, if they need any support, we will support him with it. I'm sure you will. But as far as dithering goes, I think you need to look at yourself first.
I don't dither, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, item number 16 is to elect the leader of the council for the next municipal year. Could I have nominations, please?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councillor Harvey Jennings. Thank you.
Councillor Benbeth.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councillor Paul Bayliss.
Any seconders? Yeah. You want to speak on this, Councillor Holmes? You want to speak on this, Councillor Benbeth?
Would members please indicate either Councillor Bayliss or Councillor Jennings, or whether members are abstaining as I call out their names. Councillor Allen.
Councillor Jennings.
Councillor Ashburner. Councillor Atwell. Councillor Banwaite.
Councillor Bayliss.
Councillor Barker. Councillor Beattie. Councillor Bayliss.
Councillor Bayliss.
Councillor Berry.
Councillor Jennings.
Councillor Bolton. Councillor Carr. Councillor Shearer. Councillor Davis. Councillor Dinser. Councillor Graves. Councillor Grimmerdale. Councillor Harwood. Councillor Hickson. Councillor Higginbottom. Councillor Hurd. Councillor Holmes. Councillor Hussain. Councillor Ingle. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Jennings. Councillor Jones. Councillor Tula Khan. Councillor Khan. I've forgotten your first. Councillor Leeming. Councillor Lowe. Councillor Marshall. Councillor Nater. The Mayor, Councillor Nath.
Councillor Jennings.
Councillor Poulter. Councillor Radford. Councillor Rawson. Councillor Redfern. Councillor Repton. Councillor Richards. Councillor Roberts. Councillor Shanker. Councillor Skelton. Councillor Troop. Councillor Tuplin. Councillor Turner. Councillor Webb. Councillor Whitby. Councillor Williams. Councillor Williamson. Councillor Faywinter. Councillor Linda Winter. And Councillor Wood. Thank you. For Councillor Bayliss, 18. For Councillor Jennings, 33, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Jennings is elected the leader of this council. Next, item 16B is to appoint the council cabinet for the next municipal year.
Mr Mayor, I have a motion dealing with the Cabinet, if that could be distributed to the Chamber, please.
Everybody got the copy of the cabinet? Can I then ask Councillor Jennings to move?
Can I move the motion as printed, please, Mr Mayor?
Seconder?
I will second that, Mr Mayor.
All in favour, please show. All against, please show. Is carried. Item 17, to consider a report of the Deputy Chief Executive as monitoring officer on proposed amendments to the Constitution and any changes to the committee structure. Councillor Jennings?
Mr Mayor, can I move that motion as printed, please?
All those in favour, please show. Any seconder?
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
All in favour, please show. Any against?
And Mr Mayor, I have an amendment here. If I could just pass it. Thank you.
Do you want me to hand him out? Right. It's on 17, so the amendment was moved before we carried it. What's that? The actual protocol is amending the Constitution. Okay, it's okay. All right. Just realised.
Moving the amendment. Any seconder? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This amendment recognises that all three political groups continue to remain very close in terms of seats within this council. By enabling both opposition parties to form shadow cabinets, it encourages transparency and increased scrutiny of the council's administration and leadership. It also allows for opposition parties to be informed of, influence and constructively debate policy in the best interests of the city.
Anybody? Councillor Bayliss?
Yeah, the Labour Group wouldn't object to this. In fact, we proposed it as part of the discussions at the start of the month of May. May I also congratulate Councillor Jennings and Councillor Holmes for becoming the leader and deputy leader of the council and leading from the front. Whereas the Liberals, you'll have to tell them now the part of your party is still leading from the back. But anyway, thank you, gentlemen, and congratulations.
Councillor Higginbottom.
Mr Mayor, thank you. Just for clarification, I understand that Labour are opposition, but if these guys have done a deal, which group's in opposition? I'm not sure.
Anybody else wishes to speak?
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Jennings.
Just to answer that one, the motion is about providing level and equal access to all councillors across the board, to all officers and briefings, so to everybody on an equal footing.
All in favour of the amendment, please show. That's carried. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I have another amendment, please.
Are you moving the amendment? Seconder? Yeah. Okay. You want to speak? Yeah. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This amendment, we need to recognise that settlement of disputes should be made in the best interests of both employees and the council in a fair, robust and timely manner. This amendment will achieve that. Thank you.
Councillor Jones, you wanted to speak on this?
Mr Mayor, I just formally second that.
Okay. Councillor Bayliss.
Unsurprisingly, Mr Mayor, we will vote against this. I mean, it again shows that the new party we have to my left have no respect at all for personnel procedures. They've run roughshod over the car allowance and continue to do so. Without doubt, the issue here, of course, is the Disputes Resolution Subcommittee was able to make decisions upon itself, given the evidence presented before it, which caused the previous administration a little bit of difficulty, so much so they had to bring it here to force it through on a whipped vote. This is appalling. This is a betrayal of everything we have in terms of treasuring our staff, treating them with respect, maintaining the national terms and conditions of service, and frankly, this will worsen, in my opinion, the relationship between the council and the staff. It's appalling, Mr Mayor. We will vote against it.
Councillor Rapton. Councillor Rapton.
Yes, this certainly is an harbinger of things to come, I suspect, in this council. This is a complete disregard for local democracy and for public scrutiny. And already we see them battening down the hatches with pronouncements likely to come in the autumn. I think this is a disgraceful retrograde move, and certainly we'll object to it, and certainly the public will have a lot to say on this, Mr Chair.
Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do object to this motion, this amendment that's come before us. The Personnel Committee was made up of members of all parties from this council, and we, as the Personnel Committee, had the time to look at some of these very difficult disputes and very complicated issues in a timely manner, spend time looking at the detail of the issues and listening to both sides, the employees and also the issues that management had. And I'm very sad, actually, to see this amendment coming forward, because I think it'll have a very negative effect on employee relations. It seems to be treating the employees of this council, the people who we employ to provide the services people in this city depend on, it seems to be treating them in a very, very shabby way to remove this, to remove the Personnel Committee and having that forum and that ability to look at some of the issues in more detail. It doesn't surprise me, I have to say, Mr Mayor, that this has come forward, and it seems a pretty poor way forward. Instead of negotiating and coming to an agreement on some of the difficult issues that we're going to be facing as a council, it seems that the intentions of the new administration are just to force those onto the employees without any discussion or without any ability for employees to put their point of view, which will inevitably, Mr Mayor, have an effect on the services that we provide to members of the public. I'm very concerned about where this is leading, and I would urge members of the Council to vote against this amendment.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Fellow councillors, as a member of the Personnel Committee in its previous form, I recall that that committee was set up simply because there were not people on the licensing subcommittees that listened to the complaints about personnel with the necessary knowledge and experience to deal with them. And they got, when I say they, management and the Cabinet, got some very peculiar results from people without knowledge and experience of personnel, and following discussion with all the groups, it was decided to create a personnel committee. I have to say, and I would like to place on record my thanks to the colleagues who worked with us on the Personnel Committee from all sides of this Council, because I believe they did an excellent job and they acted, in my view, with a considerable degree, if not total integrity, in the manner that they dealt with decisions that they were called upon to do. The last time that we all met, I think, was when we talked about the travel plan, and the Personnel Committee upheld an appeal against the travel plan on the basis that the Council was arbitrarily reneging on an agreement with the trade unions, and we said, as the Personnel Committee, we think that that is wrong. Now, we didn't say that the travel plan was wrong, and we didn't say anything either that the union or the management right. What we said was, you haven't followed due process, and we sent it back for due process to be followed. That went then to the Appeals Committee with, I believe, one person from each of the three parties, who met for 2 days to discuss this very problem, and they upheld the Personnel Committee's view. And it was a shameful day, in my view, when the Liberal Democrat Cabinet and their cohorts came to this Council to overturn a committee decision that was honestly and reasonably made, and they overturned it in 10 minutes, where people had taken 3 days to listen to the evidence and understood the evidence before they made a decision, and without any knowledge of the real facts of the case, that decision was overturned. And now what we're seeing is the removal of a committee which acted only with honesty and integrity because it didn't suit the Cabinet of the day. What a shame that we are losing something that we could have said quite openly to people. There is one committee at least on this Council that acts honestly and with integrity, and that is being removed from this Council, and I, for one, bitterly regret it.
Any other speaker? All those in favour of the amendment, please show. All against, please show. It's carried. Now returning to the main motion after the amendments. Can you move, please?
Yes, Mr Mayor, can I move the main motion as amended, please?
Second.
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
All in favour, please show. All against, please show. The motion is carried. Item 18, to consider a report of the Deputy Chief Executive on the duty of respond to petitions, approval of scheme. The motion is to agree that the threshold for a petition triggering a full council debate shall be 8,500 signatures. 2, to agree that the threshold for a petition triggering a requirement for a senior officer to give evidence to an overview and scrutiny commission shall be 8,500 signatures. 3, to approve and adopt the petitions scheme. Move. Yeah, Councillor Jennings to move.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Members will be aware that this is a requirement under new government legislation. And there's quite a lengthy document, Document 18, which describes the Act in detail and indeed our accountable position for introducing this. This is just the first step of the process. I understand that we will be introducing e-petitions later this year once we've resolved how to actually achieve that capacity. And obviously there are going to be issues with that, with us moving buildings and getting all the IT infrastructure in place and then trying to also encompass the new e-petitions into that as well. So it is a challenge. The threshold you will see has been set at 8,500. The legal requirement from government for a city the size of Derby was actually 11,500. This is not for all petitions. This is designed to be for a citywide petition that can hold full council to account in debate. Other petitions can continue as normal. I think a normal petition is a number of 5 people can sign a petition, and they can be submitted in the normal way through neighbourhood forums and neighbourhood boards. This is about a citywide petition. So I'd just like to make that clear to members and then ask Mr Mayor if we can move the motion as printed. Thank you.
Is it seconded?
I'll second that, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
You want to speak on this? Councillor Bamber.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Labour Group would like to certainly welcome this proposal, which was initiated by the former Labour government, as an important way of encouraging more people to take part in local democracy and also to raise issues that matter to them. And certainly the Labour Group has a fine record under the leadership of Councillor Chris Williamson in championing many of those causes, citywide causes, may I add, Mr Mayor, like, for example, the 4,000 people that signed the petition to save the school buses that were affecting many Catholic school children and those non-Catholic that went to many of the Catholic schools in Derby. And let's not forget the 10,000 people that signed our petition to save city centre public toilets from the crazy proposal by the Liberal Democrats, which many people were opposed to. And also, Mr Mayor, in my own ward, over 2,000 people signed a petition to save the CCTV cameras at Allington District Centre. And I will emphasise that was a city-wide issue. Many of the residents that shop at Allington not only come from across the city, but also many other wards, but in fact also from South Derbyshire. Many residents from Melbourne came up to me and said, we regularly come here to shop and it's disgraceful, the plan by the Liberal Democrat Council at the time to cancel these cameras. We're also not inspired or have any confidence in both either the Liberals or the Conservatives to actually to implement this effectively, or even to stand up for the people of Derby when they introduce a petition. Their record, of both the Liberals and the Tories, has been pretty poor. Just very recently, over 20,000 residents opposed the plan by the Fire Authority to remove a fire engine from Mascot Drive Fire Station. 20,000. And it was the Liberals and the Tories and the Fire Authority that actually rejected that 20,000 petition in favour of removing that fire engine. And I have to say that a shameful episode is actually the former deputy leader of the City Council, Councillor Allen, that actually refused to stop when we did a protest outside the fire authority headquarters to engage with the concerned firefighters and the residents to answer their questions. And his excuse was it was his democratic right not to listen to the firefighters or the residents, which is completely preposterous, Mr. Mayor, and absolute hypocrisy, and makes a mockery of local democracy, Mr. Mayor. And also, Mr. Mayor, let's not let the Liberals off the hook on another issue. When I went to serve a petition of over 2,000 residents that were opposed to the removal of CCTV cameras, we came into this council house because the former leader of the council wouldn't see me, wouldn't engage with local people's concerns, and we were forced into a position where we had to seek out the former leader of the council to serve our petition. And again, Mr. Mayor, what I really despise is the hypocrisy of people and councillors masquerading as elected members representing and standing up for the people of Derby. The fact of the matter is, the former leader of the council actually called the police. She actually picked up the phone to Andrew Huff, the divisional commander, a man who's paid a considerable amount of money to investigate issues like terrorism, bank robberies. You know, she actually picked up the phone to get Andrew Huff to come along to the council house to her rescue. And that is an absolute shameful episode, Mr. Mayor, unprecedented. And I have to say, Mr. Mayor, as a historian, you know, we'll all know that it's fascist regimes and extremist regimes that actually call upon the police to actually defend them. And I think that's absolute mockery, a shameful episode. And I think the former leader of the council should hold her head up in shame in regards to that particular episode. Moving forward, Mr. Mayor, we would like to serve two amendments on this proposal. Firstly, Mr. Mayor, we don't think 8,500 trigger point is acceptable. We believe, from our experience of being on the front line of serving petitions, it needs to be set. We've agreed as a Labour group at 2,000. So that's the first amendment I will be putting forward, Mr. Mayor. And secondly, we should be holding politicians to account. It's not acceptable to the Chief Executive to be accepting this petition. We believe it should be the Leader of the Council and the relevant Cabinet member. So they're the two amendments we'll be putting forward to this Council. And if you honour democracy, do the decent thing. Do the decent thing and recognise that this is actually an important way of engaging with local people and encouraging them to get involved in local democracy. Thank you.
The first amendment, Mr. Mayor, consists of the changing of the total of 8,500 in both paragraphs 1 and 2 to 2,000. So it will be 2,000 in both paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 instead of 8,500.
Is that seconded? Okay. You want to speak on this amendment, Councillor Van Bev? You want to
Mr. Mayor?
speak on this, Councillor?
Mr. Mayor, yes, I second the amendment. As the very purpose of this chamber is to reflect the views of the public we represent. Petitions are an extremely good way of engaging with a public that's become very sceptical of politics in general. We should be extending democracy and not reining in its scope. We should be making it easier for the public to have their say. I accept that by reducing this figure we could be opening up the floodgates, but to what? It's just more public opinion. When we get the e-petitions facility, it will obviously help open this up to the public, but not to the extent that is going to make any difference, given the suggested requirement. So I support the amendment to require 2,000 signatures.
Councillor Banda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, the figure of 2,000 we think is realistic. And if anyone out there has actually done a campaign and ran a petition, 8,500, you know, you're talking about several months frontline work, going out on the streets and engaging with local people on that. And I think to set the trigger much, much lower is actually saying to people that have a cause that they feel passionate about, that actually your cause isn't that relevant. It's not going to get debated in this council chamber. It's not going to get looked at by overview and scrutiny. And if you look at the school bus campaign, that petition wouldn't have been heard here. The CCTV camera petition would not have been heard here. And for those that say actually we'll be inundated with petitions in this council chamber, so what? That's democracy. You know, we should be encouraging that. We should be put in a position. I'd rather hear and take part in more debates about the issues that matter to local people than the kind of nonsense and the political backfighting that actually goes on in this council chamber, Mr. Mayor. And it would be, from my understanding, a pilot. So let's do the sensible thing of setting it at a much, much lower amount, which we prefer it to be at 2,000. And, Mr. Mayor, may I say, I look across the council chamber, and many of the petitions that have been led in this city have been, I have to say, led by Labour councillors. I mean, I don't look across here and see many councillors out on the streets on a Saturday and Sunday, like as I was, Councillor Chris Williamson, various other colleagues in the Labour group. Yes, you came on the back end of it, like the Save Our Toilet campaign, with your parliamentary candidate to get your 1 or 2 signatures so you could say you took part in it, but you weren't out day in, day out, engaging with local people, with the loudspeaker, face to face, encourage them to have their say on an important issue, Mr. Mayor. So Mr. Mayor...
Some order, please, some order.
So, Mr. Mayor, certainly our experience of leading those sort of campaigns and running petitions, we believe 2,000 is an acceptable figure, and we would certainly urge colleagues in the council to agree to that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hintzer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the paper talks about not a law, but a regulation and guidance in terms of what we need to do to have a structure to promote democracy being made to work and enabling the public to have the opportunity to raise issues with this council. I support everything that's been said by Councillor Banwade and Councillor Whitby, and I think we need to be careful that we don't have one thing after another, which is telling the public that although we want to serve the city, not our individual parties, at the same time we don't want to listen and be open to issues. This figure of 8,500, which is, I accept, is lower than what the percentage of the population indicated in the guidance, and that's to be commended. However, as the two speakers previously have said, it is another way of actually stifling democracy. It's another way of stifling communication and concerns being legitimately raised within the council chamber. We cannot, on the back of the previous decision regarding removing our employees having the opportunity to raise legitimate concerns and allow proper scrutiny for the way that they are managed and delivered. That negative decision, which I deplore totally, and this one in particular, is adding to the impression that this council, this chamber, and everybody in it who has been elected to represent the views and concerns of the constituents of Derby are not really interested in that. We need to give a different message, and the message we should give is that we want to listen to issues and concerns. We're not afraid the difficulties and the uncertainty that causes in terms of how we function as elected members, and we're not afraid for our officers to be questioned in the only way they can from employees in terms of having a forum like the previous personal subcommittee. This is another forum, another opportunity which we should enable as easily and as effectively as to be used. 8,500 is going to be very difficult. It will actually send the wrong message, and I think we should reconsider that. The guidance is there, but we should be able to interpret it in a way which allows us to engage with our constituents in a more effective and better way. Thank you.
Councillor Skelton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thinking back some few years, former Lib Dem councillor Anne Crosby did a petition, very large petition, in fact. I think it was probably about 15 or 16,000. And at the time, it was Labour who was in control. And what did they do? They ignored it. And to boot, they insulted Anne Crosby and abused her to her face. And I'm saying this just shows that what the Labour Party really think about public opinion. Their track record shows that all they're interested in is mischief making, not actually allowing the public to actually get something done.
Councillor Bayliss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of the number I mean, the prescribed number, as Councillor Jennings said, is 11,500, and in context, that's every single elector in Ulverston ward. There's 11,533, and I can't name them, I'm not going to. I think 2,000 is the realistic figure we felt in terms of effort it takes to collect genuine bona fide signatures in terms of people who are registered in Derby. We thought, look, it's going to take you a couple of weeks or a couple of months to do this, and we think that's reasonable. Now, the thing is, I'm sure this figure was set by officers, and they respond to the petitions, they don't actually go out in the streets, quite rightly, and collect the names. And we thought, from that point of view, it was a reasonable figure. The other thing is, we think the Cabinet should be made to be accountable, which is why we want the Cabinet members responsible, the leader of the Council, to accept the petition. The electors of Derby expect to be able to talk to the councillors, not the council officers, and it was something that was expected when Councillor Banwaite turned up with the TV crew and his constituents. They expected the leader of the council, being the appropriate Cabinet member, to talk to them rather than running away. We need to make sure that happens. It's a test here whether or not the Conservative group are bold enough to be held to account, and we'll see in a minute or two. In terms of the bus station, that was proposed by the Labour group and has now been opened and is just down the road. I noticed that the Liberal Democrats, the first thing that happened when they got in control was, I think they went on Radio Derby and said that they were themselves going to completely ignore the petition. And lo and behold, when it's been opened, they claimed all the credit for it. So, you know, I'm sure that Councillor Skelton has got a few more interesting points like that. But the rebuttal argument is that when you were in power, you didn't stop the bus station being built, and you claimed the credit throughout for doing it, and you decided that that's what you want to do. So you yourself ignored the petition when it suited you. It's great when you're in opposition and you can do these things and say these things, and as you found over the last 2 years, it's much, much tougher when you're actually doing it. And the fact of the matter is, that's where you failed. You cannot lead, and you're incapable of running the council properly. Now, we're quite happy to sit in the opposition, and we will oppose. We're not sheepdogs. And if your leader will tell you, you should be sitting on the front, but never mind, we'll move that for another day. But that's the core reasons we think 2,000 should be the right number, and the council cabinet members should be accountable. Thank you.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to address my remarks to some of the comments that Councillor Banwaite made. He's absolutely right. At the protest outside the Fire Authority, I declined to stop and listen to him. We'd had conversations prior to that, he'd had extensive briefings from senior fire officers, and he presented a petition, which I might add was graciously received both at the fire station and again at the fire headquarters. I would also like to remind Councillor Banwaite that I presented him with a petition about parking meters in Littleover, which he chose to ignore. Took an election to get him to admit that he made a mistake on that one. So Mr Bayliss is quite right. One rule when you're in power, another rule when you're in opposition. You can ignore them when you're in control, but you can choose to accept them at a much lower limit when you're in opposition. And finally, I would like to ask him to withdraw his comment that because he didn't get his own way, the other side must be fascists. I find that abhorrent. Thank you.
Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the whole contribution from the Labour group has been a bit vexatious, actually. They seem to have been missing the point. There are plenty of other avenues still to submit petitions of a smaller number. The issue at large is a city-wide petition. That is what this motion is based on. It's not based on a ward or a single specific issue. It's on about city-wide petitions. The bar has been set. The recommended bar was set by government, your government,
order,
a Labour
please.
Government.
Some order, please.
What we have suggested, because we do want to be challenged, what we have suggested is actually lowering that bar to make it more inclusive, to make it easier for citywide issues to be brought
to chamber, for the chamber to discuss. At the end of the day, as I've said, this isn't about curtailing. You seem to be selling this as curtailing for public speech, curtailing the right of people to complain. It's not. It's actually opening up another avenue for people to approach full council. Full council. That's the difference. And there is a stark difference between that and the petitions that go along other routes, such as to neighbourhood forums and neighbourhood boards. So I don't agree with your proposal to reduce it to 2,000. I think that would be open up the opportunity to tax full council vexatiously. Democracy is when the numbers are reached and people of that magnitude have such an issue that they feel council need to respond. More than happy to do that.
Councillor Van Bath, please.
So, as I can tell you that my group certainly will not be supporting that amendment.
Councillor Higginbottom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're all open to residents bringing petitions to full council. I just wonder, Leader Jennings, what are you scared of?
Thank you. I don't see any more indications. So all those in favour of the amendment, please show. All those against, please show.
Um, 16 for, 31 against, Mr. Mayor.
Amendment is lost. Moving on to the second amendment.
The second amendment, Mr. Mayor, consists of the addition of the following words to paragraph 3 of the motion, and that is, subject to petitions being delivered to the Leader of the Council or the relevant Cabinet member instead of at the office of the Chief Executive.
Who is moving the amendment? Councillor Banwell? Who is seconding? Councillor Rapton? You want to speak on this, Mr. Banwell? Councillor Banwell? Councillor Rapton? Anybody wants to speak on this? Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I actually have no problem with this, although I would like to say that it should be by appointment. If I were to be having a meeting and somebody were to knock on the door and demand to see me, I do not think that is very respectful. So as a Cabinet member, I would be quite happy to support this, but with the adders that you make the appropriate appointment to be able to see somebody so it's done in a dignified manner and not by interrupting other meetings.
Anybody else wishes to speak? All those in favour of the amendment, please show. All those against, please.
For 17, against 30.
Amendment is lost. Back to the main motion. All those in favour of the motion, please show. It's carried. Item 19, to approve constitutional appointments, including considering a recommendation from the Minority Communities Diversity Forum. The motion is to approve the constitutional appointments for the next municipal year, now submitted. Councillor Jennings.
Mr. Mayor, having considered the request from the Communities Diversity Forum, I have accepted the fact that I should chair that, and indeed I would want to. So I have included myself in that position, and unless there are any further amendments from the floor, I would move that motion, that document as printed.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of additions from the Liberal Democrat group. At 15A for the Fire Authority, I'd like to nominate Councillor Allen. And at under the informal advisory groups at E, I'd like to nominate Councillor Faye Winter. Thank you.
Is that amendment agreed?
Second that, Mr Mayor.
Okay. All those in favour of the amended constitutional appointments, please show. That's carried. Item 20 is to appoint the following chairs of the neighbourhood boards and ward committees for the next municipal year, and to agree that the other two ward councillors act as vice chairs. I will go ward by ward. First is Abbey Ward. Can we have the nominations for the chair, please?
Councillor Beattie.
Any other nominations? That's agreed. Elstree Ward, nomination, please. Any more nominations? That's agreed. Alvaston Ward.
Councillor Bayliss.
Agreed. Arboretum Ward.
Councillor Hussain.
Councillor, Mr Mayor, Councillor Tullah Khan.
So we've got two nominations, one for Councillor Hussain and one for Councillor Khan. All those in favour of Councillor Hussain, please show. All those in favour of Councillor Khan, please show.
Yeah. For Councillor Hussain, 16. For Councillor Tullah Khan, 31.
Councillor Khan is the chair of the Arboretum Ward Neighbourhood Board. Blackreeves.
Councillor Troop.
Any further nominations? Bolton.
Councillor Jackson.
Sorry. Councillor Leeming.
All those in favour of Councillor Jackson, please show. All those in favour of Councillor Leeming, please show.
For Councillor Jackson, 16. For Councillor Leeming, 31.
Councillor Leeming is the chair of Bolton Neighbourhood Board. Chaddeston.
Councillor Marshall.
Any further nominations? Councillor Marshall is the chair of the Chaddeston Neighbourhood Board. Chaleston.
Councillor Ingle.
Any further nominations? Councillor Ingalls is the chair for Chaleston Ward Neighbourhood Board. Darley.
Councillor Repton.
Councillor Richards.
All those in favour of Councillor Repton, please show. All those in favour of Councillor Richards, please show.
For Councillor Repton, 16. For Councillor Richards, 31.
Councillor Richard is the chair of Darley Ward Neighbourhood Board. Derwent vote. Nominations, please.
Councillor Rawson.
Any further nominations?
No, we'll have my brother.
Councillor Rawson is the chair of the Neighbourhood Board for Derwent. Littleover.
Councillor Carr.
Any further nominations? Carr. Yeah. Councillor Carr is the chair of the Littleover Neighbourhood Board. Mackworth.
Councillor Higginbottom.
Councillor Toplin.
If I might, Mr Mayor, I'm going to withdraw my nomination because I can't wait.
Yeah. Councillor. Councillor Toplin is the chair of the Mackworth Neighbourhood Board. Mickleover.
Councillor Hurd.
Any further nominations? Councillor Hurd is the chair of the Mickleover Neighbourhood Board. Normanton.
Councillor Dinser.
Any further nominations? Councillor Dinser is the chair of Normanton Board, Neighbourhood Board. I have already said that. Sorry, I can't take that nomination now. Oakwood. Oakwood.
Councillor Hold.
Further nominations? Councillor Harwood is the chair of Oakwood Ward Neighbourhood Board. Sinn Féin.
Councillor Baggy Shanker.
Any further nominations? Councillor Shankar is the chair of Sinn Féin Neighbourhood Board. Spandon.
Councillor Poulter.
Any further nominations? Councillor Poulter is the chair of Spandon Neighbourhood Board. Thank you very much for that. Item 21, to approve the schedule of meetings as printed, as revised. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 22, to approve appointments to outside bodies and charities. Motion is to approve appointments of representatives to serve on outside bodies and charities for the next municipal year now submitted.
Mr Mayor, slight change if I can. Page 3, Derby Homes, remove Hickson and add Webb. Thank you.
Is that agreed? With that amendment, is it approved that these appointments should be confirmed? You want to speak on this?
Yes, if I may, Mr Mayor. On page 10, the Labour nominee is actually Councillor Martin Rawson.
With those two changes, approved? Thank you, great. Item 23, to approve attendances at annual conferences. The motion is to approve the list, again authorized to attend annual conferences for the next municipal year now submitted. Agreed? Councillor Bayliss?
Mr Mayor, you've unfortunately made a mistake on the outside bodies. There is a number of conflicts that need to be resolved and you haven't resolved them. For example, page 4 at the top is yourself and Councillor Turner. Further down there's Derbyshire Mental Health Trust, Rape Crisis, and I think there's one more, Rosehill Business Centre at the bottom of page 7, and top of page 6, the Guru Ravidas Community Centre. I think you may wish to revisit those.
Okay, then we need nominations for Derby Hospital NHS Foundation Trust.
Mr Mayor, can I just suggest for speed that we simply just go to the vote on all of these unless we particularly want to be here all night? Thank you.
Sorry, I don't understand now.
You just need to say all those in favour of Councillor Nath.
Yeah, all those in favour of Councillor Nath, please show.
NHS Trust.
NHS Trust.
And those in favour of Councillor Turner.
Those in favour of Councillor Turner, please show.
Councillor Nath is elected.
Was that it?
No, just further down on page 4, between Councillor Hussain and Councillor Scott.
Okay. Derbyshire Mental Health NHS Trust, Council of Governors. There are two nominations, Councillor Hussain and Councillor Skelton. Please show in favour of Councillor Hussain. Yeah, those for Councillor Skelton, please show.
Councillor Skelton.
Councillor Skelton is the appointee. Derbyshire Rape Crisis, nominations are for Councillor L. Winter and Councillor F. Winter. First of all, for Councillor L. Winter, please show. Councillor for F. Winter, please show.
Councillor F. Winter is appointed.
That's it. Okay. The next one is Guru Ravidas Sabha Community Centre Management Group. Nominations are for Councillor Dhinsa and Councillor Atwal. Please show those in favour of Councillor Dhinsa. Please show those in favour of Councillor Atwal. Councillor Atwal is appointed. Is that it?
Just one more.
One more? Okay. Rosal Business Centre Limited.
Chair, personal explanation here. I am the representative at the moment and it's a fixed term of office. So unless I resign, you can't put anybody else on, so there is no election because I haven't resigned.
It doesn't...
We're not aware of that, Mr. Mayor.
So, well, fair enough, Councillor Bolton. It doesn't say here anything, so I don't know. But if that is the case, then you will continue until whatever the retirement time is. Yeah. Is that it? Thank you very much. If we could now move on to the conference thing. 23. Is that moved? Is that agreed? Attendance at conferences? Yep. Okay. Item 24, to consider the following minutes and recommendations of the Council Cabinet dated 16th March and 20 April 2010, requiring the approval of the Council. 199/09. Anybody wish to speak on this? 20709. Then 22709. The motion is to approve the above minutes and recommendation of the Council Cabinet dated 16th March and 20th April 2010. Can you move, Councillor Jennings?
Mr Mayor, yes, I find myself in the strange position as the new leader of having to approve and move a previous Cabinet's recommendations, but I can assure them that we will be going through the books tomorrow, so yes, I move these as printed. Thank you.
Agreed?
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
Yeah. Item 25 is to consider the following minutes and recommendations of the General Licensing Committee dated 21st April 2010, requiring the approval of the Council. 34/08.
Propose to move as printed, Mr Mayor. Propose to move as printed, please.
Yeah. Agreed? Item 26, to consider a report of the Scrutiny Management Commission on the 2009/10 annual report of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. Councillor Carr?
Excuse me, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor
excuse me,
Higginbotham.
Mr Mayor. As the outgoing Chair of SNC,
Yeah,
I'd like to move as printed. Thank you.
Agreed? Agreed? Thank you. Item 27, to consider a report of the Strategic Director of Resources concerning Standard Advisory Council for Religious Education, SACRE, new representative. Motion to approve the appointment of Miriam Jabit as the Baha'i Community Representative for 4-year term. Is that agreed? To approve the appointment of Jane Alderman Shaw as the ATL Union Rep for a 4-year term. Agreed? Item 28, to consider a report of the Deputy Chief Executive on the appointment of independent members of the Standards Committee. Motion is to confirm the appointment of Peter Purnell and Peter McCreary as independent members of the Standards Committee for the period ending at the annual meeting in May 2013. Number 2 is to not fill the vacancy created by Cynthia McDowell retirement in 2011, dependent on the level of workload being processed by the committee at the time. Is that agreed? Yeah. Item 29, to consider the following notices of motion. Motion 1 is Councillor Jones to move, Councillor Allen to second.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In order to give Scrutiny and the new administration full time to consider how to implement this best, I would like to defer the motion to the next full council meeting.
Is that agreed by the fellow councillors? Okay. Motion 2 is Councillor Bayliss to move, Councillor Jennings to second.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Last week this, I thought, had approval across the piece. It no longer does, unfortunately. It's rather ironic that a speech this morning made by Councillor Wood actually stole the virtues of Derby, a place where you yourself came and flourished in terms of somebody from a community other than the normal one. And it's regrettable that we have to do this, but I think in the spirit that we need to make sure that the City of Sanctuary is done properly, we need all parties on board, and I've been asked to withdraw it, and I so do, and I move that the business of the council be concluded so we can adjourn, certainly the Labour Group is going to adjourn to the Silk Mill. Thank you.
All in favour? That's agreed. Thank you very much for attending and persevering with me, being my first meeting, and the meeting is closed.